Hello, 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 greetings, salutations, konnichiwa, and every other form of greeting across this vast, marvelous multiverse. I am Matsu Quinox. This is Horse, and welcome once again, my dear scholars, to the study. Hello there, Dr. Zadium. Hello. Hello there, Firefly. Welcome. Thank you for the raid, Crusader Corrupted. Hello there, Crusader Corrupted. Hello there, Sophia Ignace. And hello there, Julian20. Arg me mateys, indeed. Oh, oh my goodness. Oh, thank you, Crusader Corrupted. And welcome all you wonderful raiders. For all those who are new to my stream, I am Matsu Quinox, interdimensional omniversal librarian. I do reading streams and gaming streams, and I am happy to have you here tonight, or today, or tomorrow, or afternoon, or whenever it is. And I would like to make a little shout out to our newest scholar, Neuronomics. Thank you for the follow. It's much appreciated. Oh, hello, Iseo. Matsu is a cool dude. Thank you, Iseo. Oh, thank you so much. Oh, I'm glad to have you all here. By the way, how are all you fine scholars doing today? I hope you're doing well. Sophia Ignasi, Matsu is the best. Oh, you're making me blush. Oh, thank you for the follow, Darth Parmues. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Thank you so much for the follow. Sophia Ignasi, can Sophia fluster him today? Oh my goodness, please. Aseo, Aseo, Sophia speaks the truth. Oh my goodness, you're gonna make me blush so badly. Densuo Daddy's here. Welcome, Densuo. Good to have you here. Ah, I myself, I have had a very long, very tiring day. A lot of work being done at the study, a lot of moving, a lot of the usual maintenance. Oh, there was one point today when I thought I actually was going to fall asleep standing up. It was terrible. I had to have Horace here prop me up on my feet. Oh, but I managed to get through it. Managed to get through it for you, my dear scholars. I will do anything for you. I need a little bit of hydration, actually, is what I need. There we are. We've also had some minor smoke problems here in the study. Um, the Crystal Wildfire Room has been laying out a lot of smoke lately, so we've had to try and get that sucked out as best we can. We're doing our best, but it has left a lot of issues. So if you hear me cough or sniffle, it's because of the smoke. Aseo, hydrate or dihydrate? Indeed. Always hydrate yourself, my dear scholars, always hydrate. But I digress. Tonight. Oh, hello there, cool skeleton. Welcome. I was just about to announce what we're doing tonight. Tonight, we are continuing our reading of Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island. Metsukunox, appreciate the effort, but you alas mispronounced the second half of my username. Fear not, no one gets it right actually, and one person got it right. You can call me just Darth if you want. I am so sorry, Darth. Oh my goodness. I will try better next time. I do try to make everyone in the study welcome, and I do apologize if I got your name wrong. Sometimes, even for an omniversal librarian, sometimes my tongue gets a little bit, well, tongue-tied, and I have issues pronouncing things. Bit odd, I know, for a reader, but it happens. But welcome, Darth. I hope you enjoyed tonight's reading. As I was saying, we are reading Treasure Island. So, a little summary of what has happened. Jim Hawkins, who. Solar Coast testing. I can see you, Solar Coast. Welcome. As I was saying, last time, Jim Hawkins, a young boy in England, has embroiled himself in, well, There was a visitor to his mother's parents' inn who ended up being an ex-pirate with a map to treasure. Jim Hawkins, along with the squire and a doctor, are heading off to this mysterious island to find the treasure of Captain Flint, alongside a one-legged man who he was warned of. Right now, they are heading off on a voyage of adventure. So, my dear scholars, and I apologize if my summary seems a little bit off. I am still recovering from my journey with Horace. So, there's that. I shall do the best I can tonight. So, my dear scholars, shall we begin our reading of Treasure Island and see what adventures lie for us? Cool Skeleton, yar! Julian 20, yes, please. Oh, that is very kind of you. Excuse me. Like I said, the smoke. Alright, then. Let us begin with Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. Excuse me. Chapter 10. The Voyage. Darth, yo-ho-ho, and a bottle of rum. Ah, yes. That actually features in this story, as you shall see. Chapter 10. The Voyage. All that night we were in a great bustle, getting things stowed in their place, and boatfuls of the squire's friends, Mr. Blandy and the like, coming off to wish him a good voyage and a safe return. We never had a night at the Admiral Benbow when I had half the work, and I was dog-tired when, a little before dawn, the boatswain sounded his pipe, and the crew began to man the capstan bars. I might have been twice as weary, yet I would not have left the deck. All was so new and interesting to me. The brief commands, the shrill note of the whistle, the men bustling to their places in the glimmer of the ship's lanterns. Julian 20, and hardtack. No barbecue, tip us a stave, cried one voice. The old one, cried another. Aye, aye, mates, said Long John, who was staying by with his crutch under his arm, and at once broke out in the air, and words I knew so well. 15 men on the dead man's chest. And then the whole crew bore chorus. Yo ho ho, and a bottle of rum. And at the third ho, drove the bars before them with a will. Even at that exciting moment it carried me back to the old Admiral Benbow in a second, and I seemed to hear the voice of the captain piping in the chorus. But soon the anchor was short up, soon it was hanging dripping at the bows, soon the sails began to draw, and the land and shipping to flit by on either side, and before I could lie down to snatch an hour of slumber, the Hispaniola had begun her voyage to the Isle of Treasure. I am not going to relate that voyage in detail. Now that's interesting. They're actually going to skip the entire voyage for us. It was fairly prosperous. The ship proved to be a good ship, the crew was capable seamen, and the captain thoroughly understood his business. But before we came the length of Treasure Island, 2 or 3 things had happened which require to be known. Mr. Arrow, first of all, turned out even worse than the captain had feared. He had no command among the men, and people did what they pleased with him. But that was by no means the worst of it, for after a day or 2 at sea, he began to appear on deck with hazy eye, red cheeks, stuttering tongue, and other marks of drunkenness. Time after time he was ordered below in disgrace. Sometimes he fell and cut himself. Sometimes he lay all day long in his little bunk at one side of the companion. Sometimes for a day or 2 he would be almost sober and attend to his work at least passably. Now that's an interesting thing to note, my dear scholars. Hold on one second. Alright. For those who have seen the 1950s version of Treasure Island, the Disney version, or I'm not sure if Muppet Treasure Island does it, but Treasure Planet does it. Mr. Arrow is usually portrayed as being, well, first off, not being a hired member of the crew, but a member of the crew that's known to the captain. And second off, he's usually depicted as a very stern man of discipline. Now that's interesting because this book depicts him as the exact opposite of what later media depicts him, in that he is drunken, um, he is irresponsible, and he's one of the worst sailors on board the ship. I'm thinking that the reason they changed this is my personal theory. They change it for the movies is to give the pirates somewhat of another antagonist against them, and for a reason of what's going to happen next in the story to make more sense. In the meantime, we could never make out where he got the drink. That was the ship's mystery. Watch him as we pleased, we could do nothing to solve it. And when we asked him to his face, he would only laugh, if he were drunk, and if he were sober, deny solemnly that he ever tasted anything but water. He was not only useless as an officer and a bad influence among the men, but it was plain that at this rate he must soon kill himself outright, so nobody was much surprised, nor very sorry, when one dark night with a head sea, he disappeared entirely and was seen no more. "Overboard!" said the captain. "Well, gentlemen, that saves the trouble of putting him in irons." That's an interesting thing because in the 1950 version, the Disney version, we get a distinct reason why Mr. Arrow has to go. The same with Treasure Planet, which is that he is, because of his sternness and the way he is towards the other men, he is a, what's the word I'm looking for? He is a, my mind is blank. Um, he's getting in the way, I'll put it that way, of the plan. But in this version, it just seems odd that anyone would get rid of him since, he is somewhat useless. And he's not getting in anyone's way except for the captain and our heroes. So it seems a little bit odd since it seems a little bit odd that something would happen to him. Let's put it that way. But there we were, without a mate, and it was necessary, of course, to advance one of the men. Ah, that might be the reason. The boatswain, Job Anderson, was the likeliest man aboard, and though he kept his old title, he served in a way as mate. Mr. Trelawney, I can't pronounce that. Mr. Trelawney had followed the sea, and his knowledge made him very useful, for he often took a watch himself in easy weather. And the coxswain, Israel Hands, was a careful, wily, old, experienced seaman, who could be trusted at a pinch with almost anything. "Kinchon, I've come for your booty. Arr! Welcome, Kinchon, welcome! We just lost Mr. Arrow through mysterious circumstances." He was a great confidant of Long John Silver, and so the mention of his name leads me on to speak of our ship's cook, Barbecue as the men called him. Aboard ship he carried his crutch by a lanyard round his neck, to have both hands as free as possible. It was something to see him wedge the foot of the crutch against the bulkhead, and propped against it, yielding to every movement of the ship, get on with his cooking like someone safe ashore. Sophia Ignace, does Matsu have a good booty? Um, well, I don't know. I can't judge that for myself. I don't know. Judge. Wait, what am I saying? If I no, don't judge it. I don't know. I don't know. Okay. Dr. Zadium, he is filled with treasure. I'm filled with knowledge, that's what I am. Cool Skeleton, oh, I drew Matsu dancing. Yes, you did. Sophia Ignacy, come on! Julian 20, filled with something. Oh, come on! You're being mean. Sayo, where can we see the art of Matsu dancing? Um, well, I think I shared it at a Discord, so it goes filled with chocolatey goodness. Perhaps mm, anything I say is just gonna make the situation worse. I just know it. Anything I'm saying. Darth, Matsu knowledge is treasure, so you actually are full of treasure. That is true. That is true. Private Maverick, dance, monkey, dance. Oh, I'm just gonna keep reading. All right. Making me all kind of. I don't know what to say. I don't think I can show it in the chat. I I think I can add it as an image, but I don't know. Iseo, we love you, Matsu. Aw, thank you. Still more strange was it to see him in the heaviest of weather across the deck. He had a line or two rigged up to help him across the widest spaces. Long John's earrings, they were called, and he would hand himself from one place to another, now using the crutch, now trailing it alongside by the lanyard, as quickly as another man could walk. Yet some of the men who had sailed with him before expressed their pity to see him so reduced. "He's no common man, Barbecue," said the coxswain to me. "He had good schooling in his young days, and can speak like a book when so minded, and brave. A lion's nothing alongside of Long John. I've seen him grapple four, and knock their heads together, him unarmed." Densuo, yeah, this, now give me your lunch money. I don't have lunch money. Next they're going to be dumping my books. All the crew respected and even obeyed him. He had a way of talking to each and doing everybody some particular service. To me he was unweariedly kind, and always glad to see me in the galley, which he kept as clean as a new pin, the dishes hanging up burnished, and his parrot in a cage in one corner. "Come away, Hawkins," he would say. "Come and have a yarn with John. Nobody more welcome than yourself, my son. Sit ye down and hear the news. Here's Captain Flint. I calls my parrot Captain Flint, after the famous buccaneer. Here's Captain Flint, predicting success to our voyage. Wasn't ye, Captain?" And the parrot would say, with great rapidity, "Pieces of eight, pieces of eight, pieces of eight," till you wondered that it was not out of breath, or till John threw his handkerchief over the cage. Firefly, will take books in lieu of money. Cool Skeleton, oh, I could add the artwork to a YouTube post and tag Matsu's YouTube. With your permission, of course. You have my permission, Cool Skeleton. You absolutely have my permission to do so. "Now that bird," he would say, "is maybe 200 years old. Hawkins, they lives for ever mostly, and if anybody's seen more wickedness, it must be the devil himself. She's sailed with England, the great Captain England, the pirate. She's been at Madagascar, and at Malabar, and Surinam, and Providence, and Portobello. She was at the fishing up of the wrecked pirate ships. It's there she learned pieces of eight. And little wonder. 350,000 of 'em, Hawkins. She was at the boarding of the Viceroy of the Indies out of Goa. She was. And to look at her you would think she was a babby. But you smelt powder. Didn't you, Captain? Stand by to go about, the parrot would scream. Aye, she's a handsome craft, she is, the cook would say, and give her sugar from his pocket. And then the bird would peck at the bars and swear straight on, passing belief for wickedness. Thar, John would add, You can't touch pitch and not be mucked, lad. Here's this poor old innocent bird o' mine, swearing blue fire, and none the wiser you may lay to that. She would swear the same in a manner of speaking before chaplain. And John would touch his forelock with a solemn way he had, that made me think he was the best of men. Cool skeleton, thank you. You can find my channel just by looking up my name. I'm not that big yet. Well, I shall. I shall. My goodness. Mm. In the meantime, Squire and Captain Smollett were still on pretty distant terms with one another. The Squire made no bones about the matter. He despised the Captain. The Captain, on his part, never spoke, but when he was spoken to, and then sharp and short and dry, and not a word wasted. He owned, when driven into a corner, that he seemed to have been wrong about the crew, that some of them were as brisk as he wanted to see, and all had behaved fairly well. As for the ship, he had taken a downright fancy to her. I'm trying to remember the captain's voice. She'll lie a point near the wind that a man had a right to expect of his own married wife, sir. But, he would add, all I say is we're not home again, and I don't like the cruise. The squire at this would turn away and march up and down the deck, chin in air. A trifle more of that man, he would say, and I should explode. We had some heavy weather, which only proved the qualities of the Hispaniola. Every man on board seemed well content, and they must have been hard to please, if they had been otherwise, for it is my belief there was never a ship's company so spoiled since Noah put to sea. Double grog was going on the least excuse. There was duff on odd days, as, for instance, if the squire heard it was any man's birthday, and always a barrel of apples standing broach in the waist for anyone to help himself that had a fancy. Never knew good come of it yet, the captain said to Dr. Livesey. Spoil follicles' hands, make devils, that's my belief. But good did come of the apple barrel, as you shall hear, for if it had not been for that, we should have had no note of warning, and might all have perished by the hand of treachery. This was how it came about. We had run up the trades to get the wind of the island we were after. I am not allowed to be more plain. And now we were running down for it with a bright lookout day and night. It was about the last day of our outward voyage, by the largest computation. Some time that night, or at latest, before noon of the morrow, we should sight the treasure island. We were heading south-southwest, and had a steady breeze abeam, and a quiet sea. The Hispaniola rolled steadily, dipping her bowsprit now and then with a whiff of spray. All was drawing alow and aloft. Everyone was in the bravest spirits, because we were now so near an end of the first part of our adventure. Now, just after sundown, when all my work was over, and I was on my way to my berth, it occurred to me that I should like an apple. I ran on deck. The watch was all forward looking out for the island. The man at the helm was watching the luff of the sail, and whistling away gently to himself. And that was the only sound excepting the swish of the sea against the bows and around the sides of the ship. In I got bodily into the apple barrel, and found there was scarce an apple left. But sitting down there in the dark, what with the sound of the waters and the rocking movement of the ship, I had either fallen asleep, or was on the point of doing so, when a heavy man sat down with rather a clash close by. The barrel shook as he leaned his shoulders against it, and I was just about to jump up when the man began to speak. It was Silver's voice, and before I had heard a dozen words, I would not have shown myself for all the world. but lay there, trembling and listening, in the extreme of fear and curiosity, for from those dozen words I understood that the lives of all the honest men aboard depended upon me alone. Oh my goodness. Hmm. Excuse me, another hydrate. And a bit of sneeze. Would rather not have that be caught on sound. Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness, I wonder what Jim heard in the apple barrel. We'll find out. Oh my goodness. Mm. Yeah, at least the 1950s version that I've seen, the 1950 version Disney, they expand a lot on the voyage, which the book obviously doesn't. And they add a few more scenes which add a little bit of tension between the crew and the other men, which I think is supposed to hint towards what's going to happen. Whereas, as you can tell in the book, they make it more like this whole thing is going to be an absolute surprise to everyone. Whereas in the movie, you can tell right off the bat that what's going to happen. Chapter 11. What I Heard in the Apple Barrel. "No, not I," said Silver. "Flint was captain. I was quartermaster, along of my timber leg. The same broadside I lost my leg. Old Pew lost his deadlights. It was a master surgeon, him that amputated me, out of college and all, Latin by the bucket, and what not. But he was hanged like a dog, and sun-dried like the rest, at Corso Castle. That was Robert's men, that was, and comed of changing names to their ships, Royal Fortune, and so on. Now what a ship was christened, so let her stay, I says." And actually, that's an interesting thing, what he's noting there, because in in some sea superstitions, it is bad luck to change the name of a ship. One should never change the name of a ship, but always keep it the same name that was first christened by. Another fun fact with that is you should never name a ship after a doomed vessel. So that's why you don't see any ships named Titanic or Lusitania. Again. "Now what a ship was christened, so let her stay, I says. So it was with the Cassandra, as brought us all safe home from Malabar, after England took the Viceroy of the Indies. So it was with the old Walrus, Flint's old ship, as I've seen amuck with the red blood, and fit to sink with gold." The name of the pirate ship was the Walrus. I am restraining myself from making a Beatles joke. I'll put it that way. "Ah!" cried another voice, that of the youngest hand on board, and evidently full of admiration. "He was the flower of the flock, was Flint." "Davis was a man too, by all accounts," said Silver. Darth, got it time for me to build a second unsinkable ship and actually build it right this time. Yeah. Yeah. Apparently. But yeah, I guess according to belief, you were never supposed to name a ship after like a famous sunken ship. I don't know. But it makes sense, I guess, in some way. Cool skeleton and posted. Time to finish listening to Pirate Story now. Alright. Where was I? "I never sailed alone of him. First with England, then with Flint. That's my story. And now here on my own account, in a manner of speaking, I laid my 900 safe from England, and 2,000 after Flint. That ain't bad for a man before the mast. All safe in bank. Tain't earning now. It's saving does it, you may lay to that. Where's all England's men now? I don't know. Where's Flint? Flint's. Why, most on them aboard here, and glad to get the duff. Been begging before that. Some of 'em. Old Pew as had lost his sight and might have thought shame. Spends £1,200 in a year, like a lord in Parliament. Where is he now? Well, he's dead now, and under hatches. But for 2 year before that, shiver my timbers. I think that's the first time they mentioned that phrase in the book. The man was starving. He begged and he stole and he cut throats and starved at that by the powers. Well, it ain't much use after all, said the young seaman. Tain't much use for fools, you may lay to it. That nor nothing, cried Silver. But now you look here. Oh, thank you for the follow. Nico lies best. Hello there, welcome. Hope I pronounced that correctly. Oh, thank you for the hydrate. Mm. Darth, jokes aside, everyone thinks the iceberg sunk the Titanic. It wasn't the iceberg. The Titanic was doomed the second it set sail. The bimbos that built the Titanic used metal that erodes in water. Huh, I didn't know that. Nico, how to become a VTuber? You're asking me how to become a VTuber? Um, well, I really don't have advice on that so much. Um, I just, I don't, how do I put, um, well, my best advice is just Cool Skeleton. There might be a wiki how or guide online. Yes, yes, look that up. Because you basically have to find your own path. I can't really give advice on how to start, honestly. It's really just, finding your own path and finding what you like to stream. There's plenty of ways to find models or create models. There are many ways to do so. So, yes, so it goes. Having 7 out of 8 watertight compartments breached by the impact certainly didn't help. That is true. Unit 20, getting a bit distracted? No, I'm not getting distracted. I am talking to my wonderful scholars. They never distract me. Cool Skeleton, best reading stream. Thank you. My advice on becoming a VTuber, just look what works best for you and find a way to do it. Honestly, I think. Where was I? Tain't much use for fools, you may lay to it. That nor nothing, cried Silver. But now you look here. You're young, you are, but you're as smart as paint. I see that when I set my eyes on you. And I'll talk to you like a man. You may imagine how I felt when I heard this abominable old rogue addressing another in the very same words of flattery as he had used to myself. To myself. I think if I had been able, that I would have killed him through the barrel. Meantime he ran on, little supposing he was overheard. Here it is about gentlemen of fortune. They lives rough, and they risks winning. But they eat and drink like fighting cocks, and when a cruise is done, why, it's hundreds of pounds instead of hundreds of farthings in their pockets. Now the most goes for rum and a good fling, and to sea again in their shirts. But that's not the course I lay. I puts it all away, some here, some there, and none too much anywhere, by reasons of suspicion. I'm 50, mark you. So he's supposed to be old and he's 50 years old? Well, I suppose back then that would have been older. Still. Darth, when the Titanic did finally hit the iceberg, the metal had eroded, causing the Titanic to flood at the bottom. The Titanic had 5 chambers at the bottom of it. 4 of them were flooded with water. Had the fourth chamber not been flooded, the ship actually would have finished its voyage. Interesting. Kinchon, 50 for a seaman is pretty old. That is true. That is very true. Especially going out to sea in that point. Once back from this cruise, I set up, gentleman, in earnest. Time enough, too, says you. Ah, but I've lived easy in the meantime. Never denied myself, oh, nothing heart desires, and slept soft and ate dainty all my days. But when at sea, and how did I begin? Before the mast, like you. Oh, hello there, Ritsuka. Welcome. We are reading Treasure Island. Well, said the other, but all the other money's gone now, ain't it? You daren't show face in Bristol after this. Why, where might you suppose it was? Asked Silver, derisively. At Bristol, in banks and places, answered his companion. It were, said the cook. It were when we weighed anchor. But my old missus has it all by now, and the spy-glasses sold lease and goodwill and rigging, and the old girl's off to meet me. I would tell you where, for I trust you, but it 'ud make jealousy among the mates. And can you trust your missus? Asked the other. Darth, yeah, I only know this about the Titanic because I had to learn about it in my oceanography class in high school when I was a wee little laddie. Ah, that is really cool. Well, thank you for educating us with these interesting facts. It's always it's always really interesting to hear new knowledge shared. Gentlemen of fortune, returned the cook, usually trust little among themselves, and right they are, you may lay to it. But I have a way with me, I have. When a mate brings a slip on his cable, one as knows me, I mean, it won't be in the same world with old John. There was some that was feared of Pew, and some that was feared of Flint. But Flint his own self was feared of me. Feared he was, and proud. That was the roughest crew afloat with Flints, was Flint's. The devil himself would have been feared to go to sea with them. Well, now I tell you, I'm not a boasting man, and you've seen yourself how easy I keep company. But when I was quartermaster, lambs wasn't the word for Flint's old buccaneers. Ah, you may be sure of yourself in old John's ship. Ritsuka, I'm going to leave you in the background while I try to sleep, Matsu. I hope you don't mind. I never mind. Feel free to do so. Solar Coast, interesting. I never actually knew about the inferior hull materials. What exactly did they use for the Titanic? Cast iron? Julian 20. Rest is good. Yes, rest is very good. Well, I tell you now, replied the lad, I didn't half a quarter like the job till I had this talk with you, John. But there's my hand on it now. And a brave lad you were, and smart too, answered Silver, shaking hands so heartily that all the barrels shook. And a finer figurehead for a gentleman of fortune I never clapped my eyes on. By this time I had begun to understand the meaning of their terms. By a gentleman of fortune they plainly meant neither more nor less than a common pirate, and the little scene that I had overheard was the last act in the corruption of one of the honest hands, perhaps of the last one left aboard. But on this point I was soon to be relieved, for Silver, giving a little whistle, a third man strolled up and sat down by the party. "Dick Square," said Silver. "Oh, I know." Now, trying to get this twice. Okay. "Oh, I know Dix was square," returned the voice of the coxswain, Israel Hands. "He's no fool, is Dick." And he turned his quid and spat. "But look here," he went on. "Here's what I want to know, Barbecue. How long are we a going to stand off and on like a blessed bumboat? I've had 'em most enough, old Captain Smollett. He's hazed me long enough, by thunder. I want to go into that cabin, I do. I want their pickles and wines and that." Yielding 21-inch thick mild steel plates and 2 million steel and wrought iron rivets, according to the internet. Wonderful. Thank you for the information, Julian. "Israel," said Silver, "your head ain't a much account, nor ever was, but you're able to hear, I reckon. Leastways, your ear's big enough. Now, here's what I say. You'll berth forward, and you'll live hard, and you'll speak soft, and you'll keep sober, till I give the word, and you may lay to that, my son." "Well, I don't say no, do I?" growled the coxswain. "What I say is when. That's what I say." So it goes. Weren't the Monitor and Merrimack's hull made of mild steel? I think they were, actually. "When? By the powers!" cried Silver. "Well, now, if you want to know, I'll tell you when. The last moment I can manage, and that's when. Here's a first-rate seaman, Captain Smollett, sails the blessed sea for us. Here's this squire and doctor with a map and such. I don't know where it is, do I? No more do you, says you. Well, then, I mean this squire and doctor shall find the stuff, and help us to get it aboard, by the powers. Then we'll see. If I was sure of you all, sons of double Dutchmen, I'd have Captain Smollett navigate us halfway back again before I struck." "Why, we're all seamen aboard here, I should think," said the lad Dick. "We're all Falkle's hands, you mean," snapped Silver. "We can steer a course, but who's to set one?" Excuse me. "That's what all you gentlemen split on, first and last. If I had my way, I'd have Captain Smollett work us back into the trades, at least. Then we'd have no blessed miscalculations and a spoonful of water a day. But I know the sort you are. I'll finish with 'em at the island, as soon as the blunt's on board, and a pity it is. But you're never happy till you're drunk. Split my sides, I've a sick heart to sail with the likes of you." "Easy all, Long John," cried Israel. "Who's a crossing of you?" Excuse me. "Why, how many tall ships, think ye, now have I seen laid aboard? And how many brisk lads drying in the sun at Execution Dock?" cried Silver. "And all for this same hurry and hurry and hurry. You hear me? I seen a thing or two at sea, I have. If you would only lay your course and a pint to windward, you would ride in carriages, you would. But not you. I know you. You'll have your mouthful of rum tomorrow and go hang." Wow, it's hard to do Long John Silver's voice in any great length. Oh my goodness. Let me get another drink. It's difficult to do the little growl in his voice. Trying to think. Oh, Israel. Everyone knows you was a kind of chaplain, John, but there's others as could hand and steer as well as you, said Israel. They liked a bit of fun, they did. They weren't so high and dry nohow, but took their fling, like jolly companions, every one. So, says Silver, well, and where are they now? Pew was that sort, and he died a bigger man. Flint was, and he died of rum at Savannah. Ah, they was a sweet crew, they was. Only, where are they? But, asked Dick, when do when we do lay 'em outwards, what are we to do with 'em anyhow? That's the man for me, cried the cook admirably. That's what I call business. Well, what would you think? Put 'em ashore like maroons? That would have been England's way. Or cut 'em down like that much pork? That would have been Flint's or Billy Bones. Billy was the man for that, said Israel. Dead men don't bite, says he. Well, he's dead now hisself. He knows the long and short on it now, and if ever a rough hand comes to port, it was Billy. Right you are, said Silver, rough and ready. But mark you here, I'm an easy man. I'm quite the gentleman, says you. But this time it's serious. Duty is duty, mates. I give my vote. Death! Julian 20, Dead Men Tell No Tales. Indeed. When I'm in Parliament and riding in my coach, I don't want none of these sea lawyers in the cabin a comin' home, unlooked for, like the devil at prayers. Wait is what I say, but when the time comes, why, let her rip. Solar Coast, shiver my timbers, shiver my sails, dead men tell no tales. Good movie, that. Good movie. John, cries the coxswain, you're a man. You will say so, Israel, when you see, said Silver. Only one thing I claim. I claim Trelawney. I'll wring his calf's head off his body with these hands. Dick, he added, breaking off, you just jump up like a sweet lad, and get me an apple to wet my pipe like. You may fancy the terror I was in. I should have leapt out and run for it if I had found the strength, but my limbs and heart alike misgave me. I heard Dick begin to rise, and then someone seemingly stopped him, and the voice of Hans exclaimed, "Oh, stow that! Don't you get sucking of that bilge, John. Let's have a go of the rum." "Dick," said Silver, "I trust you. I've a gauge on the keg, mind. There's the key. You fill a pannikin and bring it up." Terrified as I was, I could not help thinking to myself that this must have been how Mr. Arrow got the strong waters that destroyed him. Dr. Zadium, such language, indeed, such language in this story. Ah, so now we know how Mr. Arrow got so drunk. Long John was plying him with the beverage. Dick was gone but a little while, and during his absence Israel spoke straight on in the cook's ear. It was but a word or two that I could catch, and yet I gathered some important news, for, besides other scrapes that tended to the same purpose, this whole clause was audible. Not another man of them will chain. Hence, there were still faithful men on board. When Dick returned, one after another of the trio took the pannikin and drank. One to luck, another with they "Here's to old Flint," and Silver himself saying in a kind of song, "Here's to ourselves, and hold your luff, plenty of prizes, and plenty of duff." Just then a sort of brightness fell upon me in the barrel, and looking up I found the moon had risen, and was silvering the mizzen top, and shining white on the luff of the foresail. And almost at the same time the voice of the lookout shouted, "Land ho!" They've arrived, apparently. Can I get another drink? I wonder what they're going to do now. I might need more. Give me 1 second, my dear scholars. I need to grab some more beverage. I will be right back. Alright, I'm back. Thank you. Cool Skeleton, quick, release the book crocket. Don't even joke about that. Last time that happened, it was a nightmare. Kintron, dead men tell no tales. That's why we write so others can. That is true. That one more wonderful words I could not agree with. Sophia Ignacy, speedster. Well, it doesn't take me long to get more water. I mean, I've got a storage right over there of it. Chapter 12, Council of War. There was a great rush of feet across the deck. I could hear people tumbling up from the cabin and the forecastle, and slipping in an instant outside my barrel. I dived behind the foresail, made a double towards the stern, and came out upon the open deck in time to join Hunter and Dr. Livesey in the rush for the weather bow. There all hands were already conjugated. A belt of fog had lifted almost simultaneously with the appearance of the moon. Away to the southwest of us we saw two low hills, about a couple of miles apart, and rising behind one of them a third and higher hill, whose peak was still buried in the fog. All three seemed sharp and conical in figure. So much I saw almost in a dream, for I had not yet recovered from my horrid fear of a minute or two before, and then I heard the voice of Captain Smollett issuing orders. The Hispaniola was laid a couple of points nearer the wind, and now sailed a course that would just clear the island on the east. "And now, men," said the captain when all was sheeted home, "has any one of you ever seen that land ahead?" "I have, sir," said Silver. "I've watered there with a trader I was cooking." "The anchorage is on the south, behind an inlet, I fancy?" asked the captain. "Yes, sir. Skeleton Island, they calls it. It were a main place for pirates once, and a hand we had on board knowed all their names for it. That hill to the north they call the Foremast Hill. There are 3 hills in a row running south, and 4 main and mizzen, sir." Cool Skeleton. Skeleton what? Skeleton Island. I guess that's the actual name of Treasure Island in this story. Interesting. "But the main, that's the big un with the cloud on it. they usually calls the spyglass, by reason of a lookout they kept when they was in the anchorage cleaning. For it's there they clean their ships, sir, asking your pardon. Cool skeleton. I own an island. Apparently you do. Nice. I have a chart here, says Captain Smollett. See if that's the place. Excuse me. Long John's eyes burned in his head as he took the chart, but by the fresh look of the paper, I knew he was doomed to disappointment. This was not the map we found in Billy Bones' chest, but an accurate copy, complete in all things, names and heights and soundings, with the single exception of the red crosses and the written notes. Sharp as must have been his annoyance, Silver had the strength of mind to hide it. Isao, can I go on a vacation on your island? Can we all go on a vacation on your island? Cool Skeleton, of course, just try not to trash it. Ah, oh wait, I can't leave the study. I forgot about that. Oh well, you'll have to tell me what it's like, Gaseo, when you go visit. Alien 20 rock hunting? I don't know. Yes, sir, said he. This is the spot to be sure, and very prettily drawn out. Who might have done that, I wonder? The pirates were just the name my shipmates called it. The pirates were too ignorant, I reckon. Aye, here it is. Captain Kidd's anchorage. Just the name my shipmate called it. Sophia Ignacy, I'm going to visit you in the library. Well, you are very welcome, Sophia. You are always welcome here in the study. I would always be more than happy to have you visit. Cool Skeleton, so many years and I never knew I had an island. Kinshon, I'm not good with islands. Sand doesn't go well with wolf hair. I suppose not. There's a strong current runs along the south, and then away nor'ard up the west coast. Right you was, sir, says he, to haul your wind and keep the weather of the island. Leastways, if such were your intentions as to enter and careen. And there ain't no better place for that in these waters. Thank you, my man, says Captain Smollett. I'll ask you later on to give us help. You may go. I was surprised at the coolness with which John avoided his knowledge of the island, and I own I was half frightened when I saw him drawing nearer to myself. He did not know, to be sure, that I had overheard his counsel from the apple barrel, and yet I had by this time taken such a horror of his cruelty, duplicity, and power, that I could scarcely conceal a shudder when he laid his hand upon my arm. Ah, says he, this here is a sweet spot, this island. A sweet spot for a lad to get ashore on. You'll bathe and you'll climb trees and you'll hunt goats, you will. And you'll get aloft on them hills like a goat yourself. Why, it makes me young again. And I was going to forget my timberleg. I was. It's a pleasant thing to be young and to have 10 toes, and you may lay to that. When you want to go a bit. Oh, thank you for the follow, Dinkus Donkus McWillyhawkus. Thank you for the follow, and welcome to the study. Glad to have you here. Kinchon, it's a pleasant thing to be young and have 10 toes. Indeed. Where was I? When you want to go a bit of exploring, you just ask old John, and he'll put us a snack for you to take along. No problem. Thank you for the story time. You are very welcome. I am always happy to share stories with everyone who comes to the study. And clapping me in the friendliest ways upon the shoulder, he hobbled off forward and went below. Captain Smollett, the squire, and Dr. Livesey were talking together on the quarter-deck, and anxious as I was to tell them my story, I durst not interrupt them openly. While I was still casting about in my thoughts to find some probable excuse, Dr. Livesey called me to his side. He had left his pipe below, and being a slave to tobacco, had meant that I should fetch it. Solar Coast, time for me to check out. Good night, everyone. Well, thank you for coming, Solar Coast. It's much appreciated. You have a good evening. Interrupt them openly. While I was still casting about in my thoughts to find some probable excuse. Oh, where was I? And being a slave to tobacco had meant that I should fetch it. But as soon as I was near enough to speak and not to be overheard, I broke out immediately. Doctor, let me speak. Get the captain and squire down to the cabin, and then make some pretense to send for me. I have terrible news. The doctor changed countenance a little, but next moment he was master of himself. Thank you, Jim, said he quite loudly. That was all I wanted to know. As if he had asked me a question. And with that he turned on his heel and rejoined the other two. They spoke together for a little, though none of them started or raised his voice or so much as whistled. It was plain enough that Dr. Livesey had communicated my request, for the next thing that I heard was the captain giving an order to Job Anderson, and all hands were piped on deck. My lads, my lads, said Captain Smollett, I've a word to say to you. This land that we have sighted is the place we have been sailing to. Mr. Trolley, being a very open-handed gentleman, as we all know, has just asked me a word or two, and as I was able to tell them that every man on board has done his duty alow and aloft, as I never asked to see it done better, why, he and I and the doctor are going below to the cabin to drink your health and luck, and you'll have grog served out for you to drink our health and luck. I'll tell you what I think of this. I think it handsome, and if you think as I do, you'll give a good sea cheer for the gentleman that does it. Excuse me. Dinkus, greatest username of all time. Dinkus, I am quite proud of it. LL, thank you kindly. It is a wonderful username. The cheer followed, and that was a matter of course. But it rang out soulful and hearty that I confess I could hardly believe these same men were plotting for our blood. One more cheer for got it wrong. Aye, one more cheer for Captain Smollett, cried Long John, when the first had subsided, and this also was given with a will. On the top of that the three gentlemen went below, and not long after word was sent forward that Jim Hawkins was wanted in the cabin. I found them all three seated round the table, a bottle of Spanish wine and some raisins before them, and the doctor smoking away with his wig on his lap, and that I knew was a sign that he was agitated. The stern window was open, for it was a warm night, and you could see the moon shining behind on the ship's wake. Now, Hawkins, said the squire, you have something to say? Speak up. I did as I was bid, and as short as I could make it, told the whole details of Silver's conversation. Nobody interrupted me till I was done, nor did any one of the three of them make so much as a movement, but they kept their eyes upon my face from first to last. Jim, said Dr. Livesey, take a seat. And they made me sit down at table beside them, poured me out a glass of wine, filled my hands with raisins, and all three, one after the other, and each with a bow, drank my good health and their service to me, for my luck and courage. Now, Captain, said the squire, you were right, and I was wrong. I own myself an ass, and I await your orders."
"No more an ass than I, sir," returned the captain. "I never heard of a crew that meant to mutiny, but what showed signs before, for any man that had an eye in his head to see the mischief and take steps according. But this crew," he added, "beats me."
"Captain," said the doctor, "with your permission, that's Silver, a very remarkable man."
"He'd look remarkably well from a yardarm, sir," returned the captain. "But this is talk. This don't lead to anything. I see 3 or 4 points, and with Mr. Trelawney's permission, I'll name them."
"You, sir, are the captain. It is for you to speak," says Mr. Trelawney, grandly.
"First point," began Mr. Smollett. "We must go on, because we can't turn back. If I gave the word to go about, they would rise at once. Second point, we have time before us, at least until this treasure's found. Third point, there are faithful hands. Now, sir, it's got to come to blows sooner or later, and what I propose is to take time by the forelock, and as the saying is, and come to blows some fine day when they least expect it. We can count, I take it, on your own home servants, Mr. Trelawney."
"As upon myself," declared the squire.
"3," reckoned the captain. "Ourselves makes 7, counting Hawkins here. Now about the honest hands."
"Most likely Trelawney's own men," said the doctor, "those he had picked up for himself, before he lit on Silver." "Nay," replied the squire, "Hans was one of mine."
"I did think I could have trusted Hans,"
added the captain. "And to think that they're all Englishmen!" broke out the squire. "Sir, I could find it in my heart to blow the ship up."
"Well, gentlemen," said the captain, "the best that I can say is not much. We must lay to, if you please, and keep a bright lookout. I'm trying on a man, I know. It would be pleasanter to come to blows, but there's no help for it till we know our men. Lay to and whistle for a wind. That's my view."
"Jim here," said the doctor, "can help us more than anyone. The men are not shy with him, and Jim is a noticing lad." "Hawkins, I put prodigious faith in you," added the squire. I began to feel pretty desperate at this, for I felt altogether helpless, and yet by an odd train of circumstances it was indeed through me that safety came. In the meantime, talk as we pleased, there were only 7 out of the 26 on whom we knew we could rely, and out of these 7 one was a boy, so that the grown men on our side were 6 to their 19. Doesn't look very good for them, does it? So I'm going to read one more chapter for the evening, and then we will close out. I think that's a good enough starting point, don't you? All right, let me get a little bit more water. And we will begin Part 3, My Shore Adventure. Chapter 13, How My Shore Adventure Began. The appearance of the island when I came on deck next morning was altogether changed. Although the breeze had now utterly failed, we had made a great deal of way during the night, and were now laying becalmed about half a mile to the southeast of the low eastern coast. Gray-colored woods covered a large part of the surface. This even tint was indeed broken up by streaks of yellow sandbrake in the lower lands, and by many tall trees of the pine family, outtopping the others, some singly, some in clumps, but the general coloring was uniform and sad. The hills ran up clear above the vegetation in spires of naked rock. All were strangely shaped, and the spyglass, which was by 300 or 400 feet the tallest on the island, was likewise the strangest in configuration, running up sheer from almost every side, and then suddenly cut off at the top like a pedestal to put a statue on. The Hispaniola was rolling scuppers under in the ocean's swell. The booms were tearing at the blocks, the rudder was banging to and fro, and the whole ship creaking, groaning, and jumping like a manufactory. I had to cling tight to the backstay, and the world turned giddy before my eyes. For though I was good enough sailor when there was way on, this standing still and being rolled about like a bottle was a thing I never learned to stand without a qualm or so, above all in the morning, on an empty stomach. Perhaps it was this. Perhaps it was the look of the island, with its gray, melancholy woods and wild stone spires, and the surf that we could both see and hear foaming and thundering on the steep beach. At least, although the sun shone bright and hot, and the shore birds were fishing and crying all around us, and you would have thought anyone would have been glad to get to land after being so long at sea, my heart sank, as the saying is, into my boots, and from that first look onward, I hated the very thought of Treasure Island. We had a dreary morning's work before us, for there was no sign of any wind, and the boats had to be got out and manned, and the ship warped 3 or 4 miles round the corner of the island, and up the narrow passage to the haven behind Skeleton Island. I volunteered for one of the boats, where I had, of course, no business. Where is it? Oh, there. The heat was sweltering, and the men grumbled fiercely over their work. Anderson was in command of my boat, and instead of keeping the crew in order, he grumbled as loud as the worst.
"Well," he said with an oath, "it's not forever."
I thought this was a very bad sign, for up to that day the men had gone briskly and willingly about their business, but the very sight of the island had relaxed the cords of discipline. All the way in, Long John stood by the steersman and conned the ship. He knew the passage like the palm of his hand, and though the man in the chains got everywhere more water than was down in the chart, John never hesitated once.
"There's a strong scar with the ebb," he said, "and this here passage has been dug out, in a manner of speaking, with a spade."
He brought up just where the anchor was in the chart, about a third of a mile from either shore, the mainland on one side and Skeleton Island on the other. The bottom was clean sand. The plunge of our anchor sent up clouds of birds, wheeling and crying over the woods. But in less than a minute they were down again, and all was once more silent. The place was entirely landlocked, buried in woods, the trees coming right down to high water mark, the shores mostly flat, and the hilltops standing round at a distance in a sort of amphitheatre, one here, one there. Two little rivers, or rather two swamps, emptied out into this pond. As you might call it, and the foliage round that part of the shore had a kind of poisonous brightness. From the ship we could see nothing of the house or stockyard, for they were quite buried among the trees. If it had not been for the chart on the companion, we might have been the first that had ever anchored there since the island arose out of the sea. I love the wording in this. It's almost kind of, it's very descriptive and almost poetic in places. There was not a breath of air moving, nor a sound, but that of the surf booming half a mile away, along the beaches and against the rocks outside. A peculiar stagnant smell hung over the anchorage, a smell of sodden leaves and rotting tree trunks. I observed the doctor sniffing and sniffing, like someone tasting a bad egg.
I don't know about treasure, he said, but I'll stake my wig. There's a fever here.
If the conduct of the men had been alarming in the boat, it became truly threatening when they had come aboard. They lay about the deck growling together in talk. The slightest order was received with a black look, and grudgingly and carelessly obeyed. Even the honest hands must have caught the infection, for there was not one man aboard to mend another. Mutiny, it was plain, hung over us like a thundercloud. And it was not only we of the cabin party who perceived the danger. Long John was hard at work going from group to group, spending himself in good advice, and as for example no man could have shown a better. He fairly outstripped himself in willingness and civility. He was all smiles to everyone. If an order were given, John would be on his crutch in an instant, with the cheeriest "Aye, aye, sir" in the world. And when there was nothing else to do, he kept up one song after another, as if to conceal the discontent of the rest. Of all the gloomy features of that gloomy afternoon, this obvious anxiety on the part of Long John appeared the worst. We held a council in the cabin.
Sir, said the captain, if I risk another order, the whole ship will come about our ears by the run. You see, sir, here it is. I get a rough answer, do I not? Well, I speak back. Pikes will be going in 2 shakes, if I don't. Silver will see there's something under that, and the game's up. Now we've only one man to rely on.
And who is that? Asked the squire.
Silver, sir, returned the captain. He's as anxious as you and I to smother things up. This is a tiff. He'd soon talk him out of it, if he had the chance. And what I propose to do is to give him the chance. Let's allow the men an afternoon ashore. If they all go, well, we'll fight the ship. If they none of them go, well, then we hold the cabin, and God defend the right. If some go, you mark my words, sir, Silver'll bring 'em aboard again as mild as lambs.
It was so decided. Loaded pistols were served out to all the sure men. Hunter, Joyce, and Redruth were taken into our confidence, and received the news with less surprise and a better spirit than we had looked for. And then the captain went on deck and addressed the crew.
My lads, said he, we've had a hot day, and are all tired and out of sorts. A turn ashore will hurt no one, nobody. The boats are still in the water. You can take the gigs, and as many as please can go ashore for the afternoon. I'll fire a gun half an hour before sundown.
I believe the silly fellows must have thought they would break their shins over treasure as soon as they were landed, for they all came out of their skulks in a moment and gave a cheer that started the echo in a faraway hill, and sent the birds once more flying and squalling round the anchorage. The captain was too bright to be in the way. He whipped out of sight in a moment, leaving Silver to arrange the party, and I fancy it was as well he did so. Had he been on deck, he could no longer so much as have pretended not to understand the situation. It was as plain as day. It was as plain as day. Silver was the captain, and a mighty rebellious crew he had of it. The honest hands, and I was soon to see it proved that there were such on board, must have been very stupid fellows. Or rather, I suppose the truth was this, that all hands were disaffected by the example of the ringleaders. Only some more, some less, and a few, being good fellows in the main, could neither be led nor driven any further. It is one thing to be idle and skulk, and quite another to take a ship and murder a number of innocent men. At last, however, the party was made up. 6 fellows were to stay on board, and the remaining 13, including Silver, began to embark. Then it was that there came into my head the first of the mad notions that contributed so much to save our lives. If 6 men were left by Silver, it was plain our party could not take and fight the ship. And since only 6 were left, it was equally plain that the cabin party had no present need of my assistance. It occurred to me at once to go ashore. In a jiffy I had slipped over the side and curled up in the foresheets of the nearest boat, and almost at the same moment she shoved off. No one took notice of me, only the bow oar saying, "Is that you, Jim? Keep your head down." But Silver, from the other boat, looked sharply over, and called out to know if that were me, and from that moment I began to regret what I had done. The crew raced for the beach, but the boat I was in, having some start and being at once the lighter and the better manned, shot far ahead of her consort, and the bow had struck among the shoreside trees, and I had caught a branch and swung myself out, and plunged into the nearest thicket, while Silver and the rest were still 100 yards behind. "Jim! Jim!" I heard him shouting. But you may suppose I paid no heed. Jumping and ducking and breaking through, I ran straight before my nose, till I could run no longer. And we'll stop there for now. I will see you all in the chat area so we can close out this evening. Oh my god, what the heck? Oh my goodness. Let me fix this. Oh my goodness. How did that happen? Dimensional spillage. Giant Matsu dimensional spillage from last time. Oh, I forgot to check that. Oh, no, don't want to move that. Let me just move myself in position. Cool skeleton kaiju Matsu. Oh my goodness. Well, there's no stream like a Scruff stream, is there? Ah, there we are. Matsu-zilla. Oh my goodness. Oh, all of you dear scholars. So, my dear scholars, I think this has been a Yulian 20 Ultraman Matsu. Oh, no. So, this has been quite an exciting story. We're making good time on it, too. I think we're a little bit less than halfway through the book. Yeah. And I can see reading it. I haven't read this in a while, so it's really interesting to revisit it. Say, oh, it's the Mighty Morphin Matsuzoid. Darth, Attack on Titan Matsu. Cool skeleton. Hiding on the boat, suspense, yes. Cool skeleton, I kind of want to draw that now. You have permission to draw it. You have, all of you, you have permission to do whatever art of myself you wish to do. I am more than happy to see fan art from my dear scholars. Um, so, yes, looks like Jim's in a bit of a pickle there. We are going to continue that next Thursday if everything goes smoothly. Always keep in mind, my streams are always dependent on everything going smoothly and no issues, of course. Next Tuesday, I haven't quite decided what we're going to do for a stream next Tuesday, but I am leaning towards us having a word game day. Kinshon, fan art. I'm not much of an artist as much as I build things. Oh, that's interesting. 20, there's a galactic virus going on. Really? Cool skill. Yes, word game. Yes, yes. It would be we'll be playing some more Mad Libs and a couple of new games which I've thought up for the occasion. I would also like to do something else with the stream, but I haven't yet decided. Cool Skeleton, are we going to play a crossword? I don't have a crossword, unfortunately. But we will be doing some Mad Libs, which are always fun. Um, I am not I'm not sure what else we're going to do with it. I'll have to think of something else in combination. That is if we go with that. I might do a different stream, but we will do a non-gaming stream. We'll put it that way for Tuesday. Cool Skeleton. There's a thing called Words on Stream where the chat can type in answers and it fills in on the game. I had no idea about that. I had never heard of that. I'll have to look into that. Darth, oh no, Mad Libs with me. That's dangerous. Oh, I am looking forward to that then. We've done Mad Libs before. I haven't done a Mad Libs stream in a while though. So I'll have to type up the Mad Libs first and then I'll figure out where to go from there. That is if we do it, of course. And of course, as I said, next Thursday we will be doing more Treasure Island reading if everything goes smoothly. And then of course next week I mentioned this before, but I'm going to mention it officially. Not next week. On the 27th, I will officially mention it. We are going to be playing the new DLC for A Little to the Left. I am really excited to play it. We had a lot of fun with the original game. I am really excited to see what the new game is going to be like. Kintron, Kitty Paws. Yes, Kitty Paws. We'll see what it's like. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm hoping the puzzles are going to be fun. Even if the last one drove me a little crazy. Darth, Matsu trust me on this last time I played Mad Libs with other people, they were horrified by me. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Well, we'll see. There are some other little word games that are going to be mixed into it. Alright, so let's see who we can raid for this evening. Alright. Oh, Sophia Ignace is doing some crafting, doing a crafting stream. Let's go raid her tonight. But for now, my dear scholars, I say unto you, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, till we meet each other again at the study. Take care, and I shall see you next time. Farewell and bye bye.